Test. Testing 1, 2. Test 1, 2. 3, 4. Hello.
On the E building, is that true?
Testing. Testing. What is it?
There's a rumor that panels are not going on the roof of the E building. drawing shows them. But I heard from an authoritative source that they're not gonna put them on the e-building. I think you would put them on every rooftop if there was.
Yeah, the only building it's not going on is the health center building.
Yeah. I know. Not there.
Yeah. Unless you know something that I don't know.
But they showed on the e-building.
Yeah.
So I asked the question, why aren't they putting the safety stuff on the e-building? See how this stuff gets started.
I've been hearing all sorts of stuff today that I didn't know about.
That's why you come to these meetings.
I guess so. No, we're in.
Oh, you're back. See, they're on the stove top of it. Oh. No, not really. You know, mustard.
Testing, testing. Phil, can you hear me? Sharon, can you hear me? Okay. Got my heater, it's already hot. Or do you want to put the? If it's easier.
Yeah, that's better. You know what, I'm gonna walk around anyway.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna set it right there. Yes, yes. Yes, if you don't. Yeah.
I had no idea so many people were going to come out for Vincent's vocal performance. We'll give it one more minute and then we'll get started. Thank you all for being here. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. This afternoon, we have the opportunity to learn all about the solar energy project that is already underway here at the Terraces of Los Gatos. So I want to introduce Carlos Salazar, who is joining us today. He will be leading the presentation. Carlos is the Director of Energy Services from a company called Commercial Energy, and I'm sure he will explain how he and Commercial Energy factor into the entire project. But I have assured him that there are no engineers that live here at the Terraces of Los Gatos, and all of the questions will be super easy. No, I kid. Carlos comes well prepared to answer all of the questions, the simple ones and the challenging ones, if there should be any. Without further ado, I will turn that microphone over to Carlos, and then we'll have this one floating around for questions as we go.
Thank you. So I'm glad I could get you guys all here today. I want to talk to you about something really important. I want to talk to you about the warranty on your automobile. Wrong meeting? Oh, I'm so sorry. So hi, everybody. I'm Carlos. I am the Director of Energy Services for Commercial Energy. So who are we? So my organization does two things. We are suppliers of natural gas and electricity. So we work with the entire human good organization, supplying the natural gas that runs your boilers, supply the electricity at many of the communities that power your lights. That is the boring side of my company. The fun side of my company is what I do. Our actual job is to take away business from the other side. We help our client communities generate electricity on site. So for every kilowatt hour that we're going to generate here through the solar system, it's 1 kilowatt hour less that you buy from the other side of my company. So we're good with that. We're happy with that. But the way we got involved in this is we were brought in, gosh, probably about a year ago now, to help identify and create a plan across all of the communities like this in California to generate as much power on site. So we ended up creating solar systems at 12 locations. It's about 4 megawatts of power combined across about 7 megawatts of power combined across the locations. So really excited about it. It is a great opportunity to reduce the amount of carbon footprint. It is a great opportunity to do good by the environment, great opportunity to save money for the organization. And frankly, I think solar looks pretty, right? So I've got solar on my own house. I had it long before I came to work for Commercial Energy. And so I like it. Fair? All right. Am I happy? Do I look happy? Do I? Yeah, I'm totally happy. Maybe I'm an actor. No. No, actually, candidly, I'm 9 years into working at Commercial Energy. I had a completely different career prior to getting here. And I have more fun today doing what I do than when I was a ski instructor in college. And I tell people that, and I'm like, what, really? I go, it is so cool what my group gets to do. And it's not just building the solar systems. We also get involved in advising the clients on how to reduce energy in their facilities. And so when people ask me what I do, I tell them I literally do puzzles all day long. My team, we do puzzles all day long. We get into it, we figure it out, and then we go implement it, and we get to take money away from the big bad utility. So it's pretty fun. So yes, I am very happy, actually. I am. I'm a little racing because for those of you guys that know, there's a sister property called the Terraces of Los Altos. And so I'm coming from my office in Oakland. I punch it into my GPS. I'm just following my GPS. All of a sudden I end up on San Antonio Road, still not paying attention. Turn right up a little lane. I'm like, wow, this is kind of weird. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me that I was in Los Altos. So the good news is I showed up there 23 minutes early for the presentation, which is why I got to walk in here just in time. So yes, I am happy. Here's the thing. I have a presentation for you guys, but this meeting is really about you. It is about getting all of your questions answered. Bradley gave me a list of questions that I'm going to cover at the end. But if you have a question, if you want to stop, if you want to ask, just raise your hand, right? Let's ask it because it's probably something that everybody else wants to know too. So for the engineers in the room, I will tell you, I am a finance guy. I am an extremely technical finance guy, but if you ask me a question that I don't really feel like answering, you're going to get the, hey, I'm just a finance guy. I don't know the answer to that question. So, all right. So without further ado, let's get into it. So why did we do it? Very similar to what I said. We want to have a greener mix of our power. We want to create a financial hedge. So you read the newspaper, energy costs are going up constantly, right? PG&E, our local utility here, we are going to have a 23% increase in electricity next month. 23%. And it continues to go and it continues to go. So as we work with our clients and we talk about how do we reduce our costs, the only way to reduce your costs at this point is to build on-site energy and create your own, right? And even that they're trying to, which we'll talk about in a little bit, they're trying to make that more difficult for us as well, right? And ultimately reduce electric costs. I know that I'm going to talk a lot about money. We're going to talk about a lot about technical stuff, but I don't want to lose sight of the environmental attributes that we get from the solar system. This is just the system going here. This is the equivalent of taking 214 cars off the road, right? And we're going to save money and they look cool, right? So I love the fact that we do this. I use this one when I talk at schools. It's 120 million cell phones charged. So you figure at a local high school, that's about 1 month's worth of their students charging their cell phones. It's crazy. And by the way, there are printouts of this presentation. So for anyone that wants to take it home, I see you taking photographs. This isn't anything proprietary. This is for you. Yeah, this is generated for you. Yes, Bradley.
For clarification, we don't currently have printouts, but they will be available later this afternoon or possibly tomorrow morning. We'll put it up on TLG Connect as well.
Well, maybe had I been here on time, you would have been able to tell me that before I came up here and promised this to everybody. So I will take full responsibility for that. It's always Bradley's fault. It's always Bradley's fault, right? All right. I can't stand sitting behind one of these, so I'm going to move around. So how many of you have actually gotten to interact with any of the folks that are here working on site? Are they nice? Yeah. And this is just the initial crew, right? Just wait till they start banging on your roofs and like waking you up at 5 o'clock in the morning because they want to get started working. Bradley didn't tell you that we approved 5 a.m. starts. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Bradley. So, Solar Gain is a company that we've done business with for a long time. So this project for Human Good was actually so big, I had to bring in 3 contractors to do it. So Solar Gain is doing the facility here. They're doing the facility in Los Altos. They're doing a facility in Bakersfield for us. They're doing a facility in Fresno for us. And they are doing a facility in Oakland for us, right? So these guys have done a lot of projects for us. This is kind of one of the values of bringing us in to manage the process is that we bring vendors in that we already know, right? We're not the vendor. We're the middle person where we help you guys figure that one out. But these are some projects that they've done. So they did some work at Rossmore. They did the Worldmark Windsor, which is a timeshare place up in Windsor, actually, go figure. So if you want to read their profile, this is for information about them. I know you guys are all super, super, super interested in what solar panels we chose to put on the roof. So I will tell you guys a secret. In California, solar panels are relatively similar to the gasoline we get. The gasoline we get is already at such a high standard that even Rotten Robbie's gas is better than gas anywhere else in the country, right? Same thing with solar panels here. So we only use tier 1 solar panels. In this instance, they used a panel called ZN Shine panel. It is a tier 1 panel, which is the highest grade panel you can have. One nice advantage of the ZN Shine panel is there's actually a 30-year warranty on these versus a 25-year warranty. Yes, ma'am. These particular panels, I believe, are made in Malaysia. Malaysia. Yeah, so the push to American-made panels only happened actually, literally a year ago yesterday, when the federal government decided to invest billions and billions of dollars to bring that back into the country. None of those are up and running yet, but yeah. But good question, where are they made? So these are the panels going up. They're actually something called bifacial panels. So not only will we get the solar power that's coming in from the top, but these panels can actually pick up a little bit of the power that's reflecting from underneath. So as the radiance bounces, it bounces back up and it gets it. It's a really cool selling feature for the guys who do that. And it literally increases our yield by like 3%. But it's really cool because we get power from the back as well. Yes, sir. That's a great question. So I'll just repeat the question. So the question is, can you tell us a little bit about the reliability of the panel, time to failure? So I talked about a 30-year warranty. So let me tell you what that is, because it's actually a reliability warranty. So these panels are guaranteed to degrade no less than 0.5% per year. That means that at the end of the 30-year warranty, we are guaranteed to get, it doesn't actually equal out exactly to 15% because it's a half of the previous year. We're guaranteed to get about 90% of the production in year 30 that we're getting in year 1. Yeah, panels have gotten pretty amazing. The panels that are on my roof, I think that was like a 15-year warranty, right? They've also gotten incredibly more dense. So imagine one of these panels is about the size of a piece of plywood, right? So that's 4 feet by 8 feet. 10 years ago, when I put solar on my roof, I've got 200 watt panels. So there's 200 watts per sheet of plywood. This is 540 watts per sheet of plywood. It's crazy how much more dense they've got. Any more questions about the panels themselves? About 4 feet by 8 feet. Yes, ma'am. The question is, how do you clean them? So once every 6 months for arts and crafts, we are all going to go up on the roof. So it's a good question. The panels actually very much so need to be cleaned. So part of the arrangement that corporate has done is that once a year, we're going to have somebody come out, check all of the connections, make sure everything is still running properly. And twice a year, they're going to be cleaned. Yeah, it's actually amazing how much of an impact that makes when you clean the panels. It's about a 10% jump in the production on a dirty panel, right? Any more questions about this? All right. So for all of you engineers, because I know that they're out there based on the way he said it, this is a radiance production chart on your roofs. So the dark red is the most shaded or the least optimum facing panel, right? So the most optimum facing panel is actually facing a little southwest. It used to be that it was just south, but now with the way the utilities have changed things, we want a little bit of west in there. The dark green is the highest, right? So we've got about 2,100. What this is it's kilowatt hours per kilowatt installed, but just think about the relative numbers, right? We've got about 2,000 on the, I'm sorry? Yeah. Yeah, there's really not much orange on this project. So we've got about 2,000 on the top end of the scale. We've got about 1,100 on the bottom of the end of the scale. This facility on average is about 1,550, right? Which is pretty good. And, ultimately, sometimes we do put the smaller ones in, especially as or the ones that aren't as good in, especially as we get deeper into the project, the net add of adding one of these panels is, adding the last panel doesn't cost the same amount as adding the first panel, right? And so, we find a delicate balance there, which was actually done by my team, finding the delicate balance there as to what size we wanted to put in to the onto the roofs here. So as you can see, we covered everything but this area up here. All right. For a prize, who can tell me why we didn't touch that building? It started with O, but you said it wrong. It starts with O, but it's not. Oshpod, correct. Yes. So that building, so you guys know, is governed by all the same rules that hospitals are governed by. And it is a raging pain in the neck to deal with. And the amount of solar production that we could get from that building was not worth dealing with it. So we actually, in one of the pictures, in the picture that was here before I put this one in, there was actually a big whited out area over that building because it was what I sent to the solar companies when we did the bids. I said, do not look at this building. We don't want you there. So, yes, sir. So the question was, why wasn't the health center eligible? The health center is absolutely eligible for solar. It is the amount of work and the amount of bureaucracy that we have to go through in order to put solar on that building would have made it difficult to make the entire project pay out because it's hospital related. Yeah. And anytime you mention Oshpod to a building engineer, they freak out and don't want to deal with it unless they absolutely have to. Is that the ones in the back there? Yeah. The question was, how about the patio homes? So because of the way the roofs are shaped up there, so we have to have a a 4-foot fire gap around all of the edges. And so we'd literally be able to put like 2 panels on each one of those edges up there. And those patio homes are actually fed by the same electric meter as these buildings. So those patio homes will be getting their solar covered by or their electricity covered by the solar system. There's just not solar on top of them. Did that answer your question, ma'am? Well. So the bright green ones produce the most power based on their orientation to the sun and based on any shading that happens. Yeah. Basically green best, red worst. So like if you notice, all the reds are on the north sides of the building. Well, the darker ones are on the north side of the building. That's because the north side of the building doesn't get as much sun as the south side of the building. Right? You think about like in the middle of summer, when the sun's straight up and down, it's not a big deal. But as we get into the middle of winter and the sun is, you know, at a deeper angle, we just don't get as much production. What percentage is the bad panels versus like the not as good orientation as the good orientation? I'm just a finance guy. Sorry, I don't know the answer to your question. On average, we're at about 1,550 kilowatts, which is like if we had a flat roof, we'd be at about 1,550. So the ones facing this way are that much better than a flat roof, and the ones facing that way are that much worse than a flat roof, and they about average out. But ultimately, if you look at it, that's a lot of dark colors up there, right? And if we took that dark color out there, we'd be cutting the amount of the electricity that we can reduce significantly, right? So let's talk about specific buildings. I know this is really important for you guys to see the angle and the routing that we're going to do for the wiring. But I put this in here just in case anyone wanted to talk about this. So this is a more detailed view of building L. So building L in and of itself is going to get 240 kilowatts on top of it. So that 240 kilowatts is going to produce, call it 400,000 kilowatt hours a year, just that one. So that's about 40 homes here in the valley that run their air conditioning, and you know, it's about, yeah. My understanding is this whole thing here is building L. Is it okay? I'm in trouble now. Hey guys, I'm just the finance guy. I don't know.
So just for clarification, for the sake of the project that we're calling Building L, basically all of the buildings that are on the left-hand side of the Esplanade. So all of the 5 buildings there.
Is there not a building L?
There is. It's one of the 5 that are
Okay.
there.
So most likely, because I did not name these, most likely the electric meter itself is in building L. And that's why we call it building L. I just assumed they were all building L, right? So which one's L? This one?
Yes.
Okay. This one. This one.
So we have building E,
Thank you.
building D. There's an electrical room here,
Yep.
and it carries down to L, electrical room down here. So all of this L.
Okay. I have no idea why they call it
And
building L.
Yeah, it's just split
Um,
between the walkways.
But everything you see up there zoomed in is a single solar system that runs together into one electrical room. The question is, are the spaces there for the skylights? So the spaces that we see are for two, actually don't see any skylights. The spaces that are there are that 4-foot gap that we need, like from the dormers. It also looks like there's some venting up there. I don't see any skylights, but if there were skylights, there would be a 4-foot gap around the skylights as well. Yeah. You know, as I see it, I'm going to bet in this picture that those are skylights. I've never actually been on your roof, right? But the guy that designed this was. So going around the skylights. Vincent, am I covering up any skylights?
Doesn't look like it.
Nope.
Yeah.
And if I am, it's Vincent's fault. No. Guys, there's no way that we would cover up skylights. It's just not something that's done. So I'm assuming this is not building Q, but this is all of the interconnections that are going into building Q. So this is a lot of stuff going in. So this one is also 240 kilowatts. This is also about 400,000 kilowatt hours, or the equivalent of 40 homes. Correct. There's a third. No, there's a third one. Correct. We'll get there. Next page. Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, the announcement said there was 960 or so kilowatts. You showed me 240 and 240. Where's the rest? And my answer was on the next page. Here's the next page. Okay.
I see solar on the whole roof.
We asked them to cover your spot.
Why did I ask that?
Yes. Sorry. We found out you were mining Bitcoin in there. So we're like, no, you're out. All right. So back to this gentleman's question about 240 and 240 adds up to 480. And we said 960. As I got closer here, because my glasses are on my forehead, I realized that the number I was giving you was an AC number. Don't ask. There's a DC number up here, which is 333 kilowatts. So that is what's adding up to your number. The difference. So those systems are actually not, I was looking at the wrong number because I don't have my glasses on. Systems are actually not producing 400,000 kilowatt hours. They're producing about 500,000 kilowatt hours a pop, right? So that conversion that I was doing, the 1550 times that number is actually on the DC rating. So nerdy stuff for a second. Solar system panels are in DC watts, direct current watts. They go through an inverter that converts it to alternating current. There's a little bit of loss that happens there. What runs through our buildings, what runs through our, God bless you, what runs through our building, what runs through our wiring is alternating current, right? So we'll see two numbers. We'll see the DC number, which is what we use for design, for calculations, and then we'll use the AC number, which is what we give to PG&E. Did I lose it? Which is what we give to PG&E, and it's more impacting on the electrical equipment here in the facility. So, yes, sir. Yes. I would, yes, the sun, okay, so it may be on the roof, it may be on the downs. I actually would have to pull up the single line drawings to look at it. So the good question. Sorry, the question is, where on the drawing does it go from DC to AC? Right, and so they go from DC to AC through something called inverters, right? That are basically, I don't know why we don't call them converters. They're basically converting the power from DC to AC, right? It's almost like going through a transformer. And typically, those are on the down lines. So I will get that answer to Vincent, and we'll make sure we get it out where they're going.
Yeah, actually, they'll be going into the electrical rooms.
They're going into the electrical rooms. So what that means, all right, that answers all of my questions. So that means all of the wiring on the roof is DC. And then it goes down to the electrical rooms in DC. And then in the electrical room itself, it's converted from DC to AC. All right, you're coming to work for me. So the question is, I'll get to you, sir. The question is, that's a little bit different than how it's in the home. The answer is yes. So there's three different ways that it's done for the installation in the conversion from AC to DC. So at homes, we use something called micro inverters. It's actually a North Bay company, Enphase, that most of the folks use, that every single panel has its own inverter attached to it. And so all of the wiring that's running around on the roof, everything that goes down into the electrical rooms is already AC power. The reason that that's used, nerdy stuff, it has to do with shading, and it has to do with like when one thing gets shaded, how it impacts the rest of the things connected to the same inverter. And so on roofs where on residential roofs where they tend to have panels looking in multiple different directions, they want to make sure that we get the maximum production out of it. There's also something called string inverters, which is where you've got, like in something like this, you've got 5 of them up there that are converting up on the rooftop, and then it goes down. And then in this instance, it's a centralized inverter, which is one inverter that does all of it. So yeah, there's 3 different ways to do it. Yes, sir. Depends on the time of day. Oh man, I keep forgetting that. I apologize. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you for staying on top of me for that. The question is, will the power that's generated here be used on site, or will it be sold to PG&E? And the answer to the question is yes. So imagine that this building needs 1,000 units of power. Okay, forget what the units are. It needs 1,000 units of power. If the solar system is producing 800 units at that moment in time, those 800 units will feed into the building, and the building will say, "Oh, I need more power," and PG&E will give it the remaining 200 units. Okay, there's smart inverters, smart draws that come from that. In that instance, all of the power from the solar system would be going into your units, would be going into the building to power here. Same situation, the building needs 1,000, and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a cool July day, and the solar system is producing 1,200 units. In that instance, 1,000 of the units would come here into the building, and the building would say, "Oh, I'm full, go away." And those remaining 200 would go back to PG&E, and they'd literally spin the meter backwards. So like, if you ever sat there and watched your electric meter, which I unfortunately have, it's constantly ticking up. It'll actually tick backwards during that time. Yes, sir.
Battery backup on site, battery storage on site, and that's question 1. Question 2 is night. supplying all of our power, because aren't generating. And three, what percent of our total power will be supplied by the solar?
Okay, real quick. Did I answer your question, sir? Okay, so question one, because I'm going to repeat these one at a time. Question one was, are there batteries associated with the system? For storage, the answer is no. So up until April 14th of this year, batteries were not needed. On the financial side of things, batteries were not needed. Anything outside of your home where you have a Tesla charger there that will continue to run your refrigerator for like 2 days, battery store, like a battery here would last 10 minutes. It's just any battery that makes financial sense here would only, maybe it would last an hour, right? But it just financially does not make sense. So the only reason that you do it has to do with what I was talking about with this gentleman's answer here of when I'm spinning my meter backwards, right? So prior to April 14th, if I'm spinning my meter backwards, the utility is paying me full retail for what I'm giving it. So it makes no difference whether it's spinning forward or backwards, it's the same amount. And then later on in the evening, when the sun's not shining and now I'm pulling from the utility, I am basically paying for that power at retail when I gave it to it earlier at retail. So it's kind of a wash. So because of that, I don't need a battery in the system here. And because the batteries don't make sense for backup, we decided not to do it. Now, I told you guys April 14th. So one of the deadlines that we hit on the entire project is that we got all of these projects grandfathered under the April 14th rules. So this project for the next 20 years will operate under the April 13th rules. And then 20 years from now, it'll transition to the April 14th. Second question is what happens at night? So at night, you are purchasing your electricity from the, we're purchasing the electricity from the utility, right? So although we will have an overall offset that we do for the year, there are going to be times in the middle of the day where you're covering 100% of your electricity with the solar system. And there are going to be times in the middle of the night, well, actually every night in the middle of the night, where you're covering 0% of your electricity with the solar system. So in essence, the utility operates as our battery for now, where we give our excess power to them. And then when we need it, we get it from them. The good news is that there is very little or no loss in that transaction, where if it was a battery, we'd actually lose 14% of it. Just the round trip efficiency of a battery, we lose 14%. I think I covered all three of your questions. I didn't answer remind me of the third one.
Some of it is that we buy at retail, sell back at retail because the meters spin backwards.
The comment was the sum of it is we buy at retail and sell back at retail because the meter spins backwards. And the answer is yes. Yes, sir. The question was, did I answer the part about backup? Yes, there is no backup with this system. So solar systems anywhere and on 95% of the homes, again, the homes that don't have Tesla batteries, solar systems, when the utility goes down, the solar system goes down with it. So if the power was out here, nerdy stuff, but remember those inverters I told you guys about that convert the DC power to AC? So instead of converting DC power to AC, they would be converting the DC power to heat, and they'd be giving off a little bit of heat. So that electricity generated from the solar systems would just go nowhere. And that has to do with PG&E. It has to do with frequency regulation when it comes to electricity. And more importantly, it's very expensive to have that still be on and make sure that we don't fry a lineman that's up the line, right? And so the utility rules, the fire marshal's rules are that if the power goes out, unless you've got some very specialized equipment in place, the solar system goes out with it. Yes, sir.
You answered
Correct. The question was, the answer is we would be exactly where we are now in the event of a power outage. And the answer is yes, correct. Yes, ma'am.
That we as residents can do economics of this by using our washer dryer for our this question at different hours of the day as was the case with our own residents.
That is a great question. You're going to come work for me too. The answer is, oh, I'm sorry. Dang it. So the question was, is there anything that we can do as residents to help impact the economics of this solar system and make it better? In terms of when we use our energy and how we use our energy, like we did in our residences. So it's actually a two-part answer. In terms of impacting the economics of the solar system, the answer is no, right? In terms of impacting the underlying cost that is being impacted by the solar system, the answer is absolutely, right? So at home, at residence, here, everywhere. Now, by the way, businesses are faced with this. The most expensive power is between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. every day. I mean, at 2 o'clock today, a megawatt hour of power was $1.50. Forget what a megawatt of power is, but a megawatt of power was $1.50. At 8 o'clock tonight, it'll be $1,200. Right? And so that averages out for you on average. We pay about $40 a megawatt hour. But in the middle of the day, it is considerably cheaper than 4 to 9. So the answer to your question is if you can do things outside of a time frame to help the overall community with the underlying cost, which will ultimately be benefited by the solar system, stay out of 4 to 9. And that is, here, it's not a residential meter, it's a commercial meter, but commercial meters now have the same time inputs, the same value of the energy. Correct. His comment was the deal is wash your clothes during the sunshine. I am not telling you to do anything about when you wash your clothes. I'm not telling you not to run your air conditioning. The question was, what can we do? And I am answering, what can you do? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to about safety. We have lots of rats and squirrels, and they like to chew on wires and everything. Is there any chance of an explosion or fire on that roof?
So the question was, we have a lot of critters around here that like to chew on wires. Is there any chance of explosion or fire? Explosion, never, right? These things don't explode. The chance of fire is probably no higher than the chance of this thing catching on fire. Does it happen? Yeah, it does, right? There's fire, there's electrical fires all the time. What's in place in this that helps protect from that? So at every egress into the rooftop, there are breakers to turn them off, right? So that the firemen can turn them off if they come up. There are protective relays on all of these, similar to like a GFCI switch that you have in your kitchens, right? To make sure if they touch water that you're protected. The solar industry is heavily regulated by not only the, what are they called? The planning departments in the cities, but this also has to go through fire planning and everything else to make sure that we're mitigating those risks as much as possible. So can I tell you it's never going to happen? No, right? I also can't tell you that we're never going to get struck by lightning. Did I answer your question, ma'am? Thank you. Yes, sir. 2/3 of the plans have been approved by the city, and we're waiting for the one last set of plans to be approved. They are actually just doing safety things up there right now. They're, as my CEO likes to say, they're fixing to get ready to do something. Yes, sir. The question was, when do I think the project's going to get? See, I didn't even have to do a presentation. They got all these questions they're going to ask me. And so I'm just going to like get to them and I'm going to be like, skip. The question, when do we think the project will be complete and we'll actually be getting power from the solar system? Internally, I'm forecasting to Human Good Leadership that it'll be done first quarter of 2024. I would very much so like to see it done in Q4. So we have an insurance thing that came up that we're having to run all of our plans through a separate underwriting or through a separate process and a separate. Remember I was telling you guys about Oshpod? Yeah, well, basically Oshpod from an insurance company jumped in and said they want to look at everything. So it might be delayed. Yes, sir. So it's a good question. I believe the bill itself is going to go down about 40%, but the usage is going to go down by 65%. And that has to do with so when you had your own utility bill, you basically just paid for usage, right? So 1 kilowatt hour less that you used was that cost down. On a commercial level, we have something called demand charges that we have to pay, which is like a capacity number. And we don't get around that with solar because those will end up being set at night. And so it's not a straight one-to-one savings when it comes to that. Yes, sir. So the question was, if one of these buildings that is not a building, it is a grouping of buildings, gets completed, can we start utilizing the power from that before the other two are complete? And the answer to your question is yes. So they are 3 independent solar systems. So each one of them will get something called permission to operate. So we will get sign off by the local, we'll get sign off by the city of Los Gatos. We'll get sign off by the fire department of Los Gatos. And then ultimately PG&E will say, okay, it's okay to turn this on. And at that point, we'll turn it on. And those 3 will be separate.
So your answer is starting at first quarter 24. Does that mean a building or everything?
So I'm a total sandbagger, and you will never be able to nail me down to a number that I'm not 100% confident is going to happen. So they'll all start. Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, is the first quarter of 24 start for all buildings or one of the buildings or where it is? My commitment is that they will all be on by first quarter of 24, and hopefully they'll be on sooner than that. Yes, ma'am. All right. So let's play a game. Oh, God dang it. I'm like thinking in my head, how do I answer this question? So the question is, how fast will we financially recover the money from this system? Okay. So we won't play a game. It's just under 5 years. Just under 5 years. Yeah. So there's some significant, which is actually great considering what we're doing, where we're doing. There's some changes that happen at the federal government level with the Inflation Reduction Act that allowed us to take advantage of some tax credits that we didn't used to be able to take advantage of, which are helping accelerate that. Just shy of 5 years. Correct. Yes, sir.
Consider this as a capital investment.
I'm going to have to hand that one over to Bradley. I don't know what the individual structure is here. All of my the question was, do we consider this a capital project here in the community and what are the conditions? I honestly don't know the answer specific to this community, but I will let Bradley answer that.
Yes, it is considered a capital project, which means all of the installation costs, all the costs associated with installing the system is covered through the human good capital budget and not the Terraces of Los Gatos operating budget. The question is it depreciated? Yes, and that's all through the on the human good budget side. As far as the cost savings go, the community utility expenses do fall under the operations budget. So we reap the benefits of decreased utility expense while human good absorbs the costs of the installation.
Well, had I known that was the answer, I would have taken it. That sounds like a pretty dang good answer. Someone else is paying for it and we benefit from it. Did that answer your question? Okay. Yes, yes, and I get 10%. I saw a question over here. It was. Yes, ma'am.
This would be for Bradley. So how
Oh, if it's a good answer, I want to answer it.
How does human good recover its costs? Does that mean they assess us ultimately by increasing fees? Or how does it recover its expenses?
Bradley?
The short answer is all of the
Well, hold on real quick. The question was,
Oh.
if human goods paying this, see, I remember this time. If human goods paying this, how is human good recovering the funds for, how are they returning their return on investment?
So last week we did the presentation where we looked at all of our operating margin, operating expenses, revenue. What we didn't cover in that was entrance fee revenue. So the revenue that comes into the communities through entrance fees, and then also any sort of corporate restructuring, refinancing, all of those funds are what fund capital projects like this. So capital improvements like this have no impact on resident monthly fees.
That may be, but it does have an impact on the amount of funds we will have for capital improvements here going forward, correct? And that affects us every day.
I'll actually handle that one if you're okay with it. We spent money that could only be spent on something like this. The money was earmarked for this. It had to be spent on, it was actually kind of cool. They said, hey, Carlos, here's a bunch of money. Go spend it for us.
Yeah, and I don't know the finance side of it, but there was some bond refinancing that took place, which infused a bunch of capital into the communities or into the organization that needed to be used for specific purposes like this one.
Correct. That's a good question. So the question was, when does the government chip in? So depending on the property, some of the properties are getting a 30% tax credit. Some of the properties are getting a 40% tax credit, and some of the properties are actually getting up to a 50% tax credit, depending on where they're located, right? Anyone that wants a lesson on the Inflation Reduction Act, I would be happy to give it, but just, it's all about locations, right? So this one gets 30%. And so if the project's completed in 23, we get to request from the government that 30% in 24 when for-profit businesses would have filed their taxes.
So we're nonprofit. How do we don't pay taxes, right?
Correct.
How do we get a reduction in zero taxes?
So prior to, all right, we're going to get, so the question is, we're nonprofit. How do we get a reduction in our taxes? which are zero. And so prior to this time last year, the answer was you couldn't. And we had to go and get a tax equity partner to partner with, and they would pay, they would cover a portion of the cost, and then they would take the tax credit, right? So, and it was interesting. It was like you had to be a for-profit with a huge amount of tax appetite in order to take advantage of these tax credits.
So there's a business that does this?
Absolutely.
Actually,
Correct. Correct. You give them your 30% tax credit and they'll give you 15% off of your solar system. So with the Inflation Reduction Act, they opened that up through something called direct pay. So now, not-for-profits, government organizations, and Indian tribes, who none of which pay taxes, can submit a request through this direct pay option, and then they will be just written a check. So you don't have to have, Human Good Corporate will be written a check for the portion of the part that the government's picking up. The portion of the part that y'all are picking up and I'm picking up. Yes, sir.
City award plan.
So the question is, what is the warranty plan if something breaks, if something gets fixed, what does that cost? So the installation itself is warranted for 10 years. The workmanship part of it is warranted for 10 years. The panels are warranted production-wise for 30 years. So anything between year 0 and year 10, if something breaks, would be covered by the installation company through their warranty. Anything past that would it would depend on what it was. And that will all be coordinated through the facilities folks and coordinated through Human Good Corporate.
Nope, Vincent.
Vincent. Yeah, but realize that if the power, you asked, who do we call if the power's out? If the power's out here, it's probably not the solar system. Yes, sir.
So if a panel breaks, do they just replace it? Or is there deductible involved with so much or?
It's a good, so the question was, if a panel breaks, do we just replace it? Is there a deductible involved? The answer is no, there's no deductible involved. It's just replaced. And the cool thing that has happened in the last 6 or 7 years with solar panels is they've become very cookie cutter. So every one of these panels coming out the bottom of it have 2 whips, like 2 electrical plugs coming out of it. One goes to the panel in front of it. One goes to the panel behind it. And like, they're literally like plug connectors. And so if a panel needs to be replaced, you go in, you unscrew 4 screws that hold it down, pull it out, disconnect the whips on both sides, connect the new whips, put the panel back down and put it back down.
We will,
Yes, sir.
Some of the home systems, if a panel fails, it's set out so that it avoids it. I think these are in series, right? If the system doesn't go down, because they have some way to skirt around the failure.
Correct. They're actually in parallel, but yes. The question was, if a single panel goes down, does it take an entire system down? And the answer is no. Right? They're wired to bypass that.
we will take 2 more short questions.
Come on, this is fun.
Or 1 more longer question, and then we got to wrap.
Yes, ma'am.
I have 2 questions. One of them is where the health center is, our dining room is below that. The kitchen, gas, electricity, and dishwashers, are we benefiting at all? Because that can't be covered.
So the question is, the kitchen and dining room are over near the health center. Are they benefiting at all? And the answer is no. There is no connection to that.
And the second question was, so unplugging my television set in the middle of the night isn't gonna make any difference? Because I heard that was one of the suggestions. What can I do to lessen my usage. And somebody said, unplug your computer, your television, whatever you're not using.
So the question was, does unplugging my television set at the end of the night help? Every little bit makes a difference if it adds up. Now, my home, where I've got 4 people there, we've got air conditioner, everything else, in the middle of the night, we're drawing 0.5 kilowatt hour of power every hour. And we don't unplug anything, right? And we use about 10,000, 11,000 kilowatt hours a year. So would the impact be there? Of course it would. Would anyone be able to notice? No. If all of you unplugged everything all night, every night, we would never notice. Now, it would be a great opportunity to reach out to your grandkids to help you reset the clock on the VCR. Come on, I had to throw that one in. That was funny. That was funny. All right. I'm okay running over. Are you not?
Yeah, we got to wrap.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me run through this stuff really quick. All right. I told you guys the rules changed. So April 14th, prior to that, we sell at retail, we buy at retail. Good. After April 14th, you sell back to the utility at wholesale and buy at retail. You sell it to them at that $10 I was saying, and you buy it back at $1,000. This is why we got all the projects in under that category. Construction timeline. We expect to have the Q group and the L group done with permission to operate by 1/1/2024. We're actually going to drag that into 12/31 for other reasons. And 1/26/24. But we expect all of the projects to be completed no later than 12/15. All right. If your building's on that picture, you're in the N group. If your building's on that picture, you're in the Q group. And if your building's on that picture, except for those little houses, you're in the L group. Okay, let me make sure I covered all of these. Will we be off grid? We covered that one. Will there be batteries? We talked about that. Will there be excess power generated? We talked about that. Yes. How long will the panels last? I actually needed to update that. That was a 30-year warranty. My apologies. What are the anticipated cost savings for the community? About $350,000 a year on the OpEx. Construction plan we talked about. How do the economics work? This was my corporate answer. Human good covers all of it, so don't worry about it. But you guys asked those questions. Someone asked the question about the parking lot and why we couldn't put solar on the parking lot. So I actually got the answer to that question. Although we have use of the parking lot, we don't own the parking lot. The church owns the parking lot, and we're not going to put solar panels on property that's owned by somebody else. And what happens when there's no sun? PG&E covers the load of the entire community. One last question from anyone who has not asked a question yet. Awesome. Thank you guys very much. Thank you for your participation. We appreciate it.
I think you did pretty good for a finance guy. Thank you, Carlos.
My pleasure.
We really appreciate having you here for all the work you're putting into this project and for a wonderful presentation. Thank you for answering all the questions. Everybody run to the restroom, grab a snack, come back at 3:30 for a wonderful community currents event.
It's not going to be as
Marion
cool as my
Shane.
talk, though.
So it'll be a great presentation, 3:30. That's 26 and a half minutes from now by a wonderful audio.